Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. My patience was vanishing day by day, and I didn't think I could try to be understanding anymore towards my girlfriend. I was having a lot of weird thoughts lately, which had left me feeling anxious and uncomfortable in my relationship. And after what happened 2 days ago, everything that was built up inside me for the past couple of months just burst out. I ended up breaking up with my girlfriend, but now I'm having a really hard time and I keep thinking about going back to her. My thoughts aren't clear anymore, and I want to ask people in this subreddit if my concerns were valid or not. So, 2 days ago, I came home from work and tried to find my set of keys, but they weren't in my bag. I thought I must have forgotten them somewhere, so I reached for the spare key we keep in the windowsill. But unfortunately, the key was missing too. That meant my girlfriend was home and had used the spare key before me. So I knocked on the door for a while. When there was no answer, I thought she must be in the shower or listening to music, so I tried calling her on the phone in the hopes that she at least sees the call. But again, there was no answer. I almost gave up when the thought of checking for my options to break into the house came to me. I went around the house to see if the kitchen window or the back door was open. Unfortunately, all of them were locked from the inside. The only way left for me was to climb through the balcony door, but it was too high, and there were no footstands I could use to push myself up. I gave up and just sat on the porch when my neighbor came out to walk his dog. He asked me why I was sitting outside in such heat. I explained to him my situation, and he said he'll help me out. He told me he had a ladder he uses because he's an artist and sometimes his canvases are too big to reach on foot. He went back to his house and came back after a minute with the ladder. I used it to get a hold of the balcony floor and push myself up onto the balcony. I was praying all this while for the door to be open, and finally my luck struck and I was able to get in. I thanked the neighbor for his help and promised him a beer later. When I went inside, I looked for my girlfriend. I knew she had to be home because the spare key on the windowsill was missing, but she wasn't in the bedroom. I went downstairs, and what I saw shocked me. She was sleeping on the sofa with barely any clothes on, and she wasn't alone. Her brother was lying on the same sofa, and it seemed like they were cuddling. Now, normally I wouldn't have reacted in an extreme way at finding her like this if it was for the first time. But for the last couple of months, many things have been bugging me. I have seen both her and her brother interact, and although a fair amount of intimacy is expected in a sibling relationship, I was never comfortable with the way they behaved. They were always too touchy with each other for my taste. Whenever my girlfriend's brother came over to stay for a while, I'd catch her walking around in just a t shirt without any hesitation. I even once tried talking to her about how uncomfortable I am with the way they both behave, but she brushed me off, saying that they just love each other and have grown up together, so it's not uncommon for them. But that day, I saw them lying on the sofa, snuggling together, and I couldn't control myself. My first thought was to wake her up and demand from her an explanation for her disgusting behavior. But what would that have gotten me other than another brush off about how that's their sibling bond? So I decided to call my girlfriend's parents. Maybe they'll be able to explain to me why, even after being adults, they still behave like 8 year olds without any boundaries. When her mom picked up, I asked her straight away about how close my girlfriend had been with her brother while growing up and what kind of bond they had. Her mom was a little taken aback by my question and asked me why I am not talking to her daughter and instead calling her. I told her how I had already asked my girlfriend about it, but she didn't bother to explain to me and just shrugged off the topic. I just wanted to know everything before I made any assumptions on my own and hurt her by saying something that isn't true. My mom said that she doesn't approve of me talking to the mom about my issues in the relationship that I share with her daughter, but just for that one time, she's willing to answer any questions I had. Then she told me that her children didn't share a very deep bond from the start. They used to fight all the time in middle school and couldn't stand each other. But around high school, They got really close. She was glad to see both her kids were finally getting along and would be able to take care of each other if things go sideways. Although she had her doubts that they'd start fighting again, thankfully that didn't happen and they had only gotten closer over time. It's like they share everything with each other and there are no secrets between them. Hearing her say those things made me really uncomfortable. I didn't know how to react to this newfound information. So apparently, these two siblings were always getting on each other's nerves until one day in their teenage years, they just happened to have gotten along. Now, I know that there could be a million reasons why two people would suddenly become very close, but I couldn't help but think only the bad reasons. Am I the a-hole here for thinking like this and not trusting my girlfriend? Should I bring my concerns up with her or just try to forget everything? I don't want to lose her by accusing her of something that even in my thoughts sounds unholy and disgusting. I just wish there was a way to approach this subject without turning it into a big misunderstanding. When I first wrote about my story in this subreddit, I didn't think I'd get such a huge response. I read through all the replies people left, and it seemed like the majority of you were agreeing that I should just talk to her about how exactly I feel and see if she's willing to make adjustments for me. And when I gave it a little more thought, I also came to the conclusion that it's better to talk about what makes me uncomfortable instead of letting it all build up only for it all to explode at the wrong time. So I told my girlfriend that I needed to talk with her, and it was pretty serious. She sat down with me in the living room and asked me what was going on. The first thing I did was tell her that what I was going to say might sound bad and she may feel like I'm trying to accuse her of something, but she should hear me out completely before replying. I specifically told her to not get hurt, as this was about how uncomfortable I feel with some things and not an attack on her. She told me that I was actually scaring her, and whatever it is, I should just be open about it because communication is the only way to keep moving forward. Taking a deep breath, I finally said out loud all my thoughts from the past few months. I told her how her relationship with her brother was too intimate for my comfort, and maybe it's just because I don't have a sister and grew up with three brothers that I can't understand their bond. But still, what I saw was a little too awkward for me. I told her that her habit of walking around the house in just a t-shirt was fine as long as it's just us two living there and don't have guests because call me old-fashioned, but I think we really should have some boundaries. I was also uncomfortable with how she joked about bedroom activities with her brother in front of me without any concern that I might want to keep those things private. I told her how I found both of them snuggling on the couch and sleeping a few days ago and just how extremely uncomfortable it made me feel. When I was done telling her about all the things that didn't sit right with me, I finally mentioned the phone call with her mother and how she told me that they got closer in high school. I asked her if something specific happened that made them become so intimate with each other. My girlfriend was silent while trying to process everything I just told her. I could tell that she was a bit angry when I told her about the call, but she just let out a sigh and told me that she's willing to look over how I involved her mom in this just this once because it seemed like I was really frustrated with everything. Then she told me that something did happen in high school and it wasn't anything taboo as I was thinking. She said that she used to keep a journal when she was young and her brother got a hold of that and read through it. She was utterly humiliated because all her secrets were not secrets anymore. So she decided to take revenge and dig dirt on her brother. After about a month of crazy stalking and keeping tabs on him, she caught him being dumped by his then girlfriend because apparently he was a crybaby in bed and very clingy that it was suffocating for her. But instead of making fun, she felt bad and came clean to him about eavesdropping on their conversation. After that point, it was like they had bared their most embarrassing secrets in front of each other, so nothing else really seemed to embarrass them any further. That's why they grew close over time and started sharing everything with each other. They even hugged each other when the other person was going through something, and that is why she was holding her brother that day on the sofa and ended up falling asleep. It wasn't anything more, and if she knew how uncomfortable I was with everything, she would have tried to maintain some boundaries. After hearing her explanation, I was able to completely relax in a long while. I just thought that I should update you guys too, who are asking me what exactly happened and whether I ended up breaking up with her or not. EAH, bruh. I have two sisters and one brother, and let me just tell you that no amount of closeness would make me go cuddle with any of them, especially with my sisters. In fact, I seem to have a more hands on relationship with my brother than any of my sisters. NTA, I don't think you're an a hole for thinking these thoughts, and if I may, you should run for the hills. It looks like a Sweet Home Alabama situation, and personally, that's too complicated to deal with. If you're the kind of guy who doesn't like a mess, just leave because it ain't worth it. AITA for wanting to prohibit our neighbors' grandkids from coming on our property. We live in a rural community, and most of the properties around here are about half acre. Our property is a really long trapezoid shape with a decent section of it a natural untouched forest. It's pretty dense, so you can't really see in until you are in it. This forest is between us and one neighbor, no fence. Since we moved here, two different families have lived there, and we've had no problems until this third family moved in. Today, I went into our woods and noticed a beaten track. I thought it odd and went in further and realized there were trails running through the whole forest. The natural ground vegetation is ruined. Trees were pulled down and piled, and jumps were created. I realized our neighbor's grandchildren had created this whole bike course on our property. Now, two things. One, I can't imagine they don't know that the wooded area is ours. It's pretty clear on Lot's map that their property line is just barely in the trees. Two, their grandkids only visit on weekends and often play with our kids happily. On our property, on our trampoline and full-on playground that we created from three separate play sets. We are happy to have neighbors' kids play with our kids on our property. That is not the issue. The issue is that they literally destroyed a natural wooded area that belongs to us and did not even ask if it was okay for them to ride their bikes in there. My husband doesn't think I should talk to them about it, as we are on decent terms otherwise. I am sitting here getting more and more mad the longer I think about it, especially because their property is actually bigger than ours, and they have their own wooded area. They even put up a shed when they first moved in that is partially on our property. But I didn't say anything about it then. But am realizing now maybe I should have. What do you think? AITA and should just leave it alone, or do I have just cause to approach the neighbors? Our kids did not know about the trails until I asked them about it, and were upset to find out that their forest had been ruined. It was not any other kids in the neighborhood, as we have been here for 5.5 years, with the same neighbors, and not until our next door neighbor's grandkids started visiting a little over a month ago did the trails appear. NTA, your property is your property. Not sure where you live, but many states have purple fence laws in which you do not need to have no trespassing signs up, only purple markers on something, be it a fence, gate, or tree. Find your property line and paint purple markings on the tree or tag with something purple. Also, file a police report, take photos of the damages, and inform the neighbors you don't want anyone to trespass. Also, buy a trail camera to catch the culprits on film. Imagine if someone gets hurt out there. You would be liable because it is your property. P.S. In regards to that shed, send them a certified letter saying it's on your property and that you would like it removed immediately, or you will have to have it removed at their expense. NTA, first of all, there is a liability involved if they are doing a dangerous activity on your property. Second, it is rude that they are there at all without permission. Doubly rude for them to have made structural changes to the natural landscape. Third, your neighbors have crossed boundaries, literally and figuratively. That means that you are not on good terms. You are just letting them run roughshod on you to keep the peace. Go over there and tell them that while you are happy to have their grandkids play with your kids on the play structures, etc., you need them to stay out of the wooded area. Say nicely that you will put up some signs on the property line so the kids know where it is in future. This happened last night, so it's still pretty raw for me currently, but I have to get this out and know if I was wrong for this. My stepdad has this thing that twice a year around the start of fall and spring, he will get really irritated about everything. You don't open the door in time because you're trying to manage a hyper St. Bernard, some type of German Schnauzer, and a tiny Chihuahua with no sense of personal space. He gets mad and lectures you. Send a quick one word text about your day because you have stuff to do. He gets pissed and berates you for not saying more. Stupid stuff like that. I unfortunately have gotten used to walking on eggshells around him during this time, but it all came to a head last night. I had just gotten home from a 12-hour shift at the hospital's kitchen. I was hot, sweaty, and felt like shit because I barely slept the night before. Plus, my mom's dog was sick, so I had to check on her as soon as I got home, then take care of the other dogs. What I didn't know is that in my tiredness, I completely missed a fan standing up drying one of the carpets that our St. Bernards peed on. I took care of the dogs, showered, got dressed for bed, ate something, and had a beer. I'm 21. What I didn't know is the dogs had gotten the zombies. While I was getting dressed and knocked over the fan, I didn't notice it because my room is soundproof and on the far side of the house. I stayed in my room the rest of the time watching my mom's dog, our St. Bernard. So when they got home, guess what my stepdad noticed? Yep, the knocked over fan. He was pissed. He called me out to the living room asking me if we ever had the fan facing down. Now, one thing about me, I cry very easily. Sad movie tears come out, happy tears are dropping, angry, then I'm pissed off with tears barely hanging on. I hate it, but for some reason my eyes just start getting misty and I can't stop it. So he got mad because he thought tears are weak. He never lets himself cry, so why should his stepdaughter cry? My mom tried to stop him, but he decided to make this a sit down family conversation. In other words, he wanted to make me feel worse so he can prove a point. Finally, I was just done with it. I told him flatly, still crying, but just emotionally done with him. You do realize we are not some emotional outlet for you to take your anger out. You do this every year, twice a year. We've tried everything from therapy to medicine, and nothing is working for you. I had to listen to my mom cry after you're done taking your emotions out on her. We are not emotional dolls for you. Figure out what's wrong with you by yourself because I'm tired of feeling like I'm in a house of eggshells every time you're upset. He understandably got upset, but I still stand by what I said. But my mom said that though I was right, my tone and words were too harsh. AITA? Okay, so I didn't expect to get so many people saying NTA, so I talked with my mother and she agreed to talk to him about his whole reaction and everything. I'm also looking at a nice house walking distance from my work, but right now I need to keep saving up money in order to move out. NTA, stepdad needs to realize the world doesn't revolve around him. And he doesn't get to be abusive because he can't handle his feelings. I hope your mother kicks him out soon. He sounds like a tyrant. NTA, ranting and raving at people for doing nothing wrong just because you feel like it is a super AH move. Your mom is an AH too for not defending you. Are you able to live with dad or something?